The first sign something was wrong was the way the two men in charcoal suits stepped in front of me before I even reached the doors of the Crestwood Vineyards event hall. One blocked the walkway with a stiff, apologetic arm. The other subtly tapped his earpiece as if preparing for resistance. "Sir," the taller one began, "we need to check your name." I blinked at him. "Check my? I'm the father of the bride." It wasn't a boast. It was the truth that had shaped the last 12 years of my life. But the guard's expression didn't shift. He looked down at a printed list clipped to a board, ran his finger along the names, and then glanced back up at me with the forced gentleness of someone about to deliver unpleasant news. "You're not on the approved entrance list, Mr. Hart." "Approved list?" My chest tightened. There must be a mistake. Behind me, laughter rippled from a group of bridesmaids taking pictures by the fountain. A photographer adjusted lenses. Music drifted from the reception tent, like nothing was wrong. But the longer the silence stretched, the more the air felt wrong, thick, expectant. "Let me talk to someone," I said. "Her mother, her fiancé, anyone." Sophia finally caught up to us, heels crunching on the gravel, her shawl fluttering around her arms. She didn't look shocked. If anything, she looked braced, like she'd been expecting this. "What's going on?" I asked her directly. "Why can't I get in?" She smoothed a loose strand of hair and offered a small, practiced smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Evan, maybe just step aside for a moment," she murmured. "Let me see what the issue is." "No," I said, louder than I intended. "What's happening?" The shorter guard exhaled. "Sir, we were instructed not to allow you inside under any circumstances." The words landed like a punch. Instructed by who? By the bride and her family. I felt my stomach twist. For a moment, all I heard was the rustle of vineyard leaves in the breeze. Then, like an echo from a place I didn't want to visit, a memory of the message I'd received 2 weeks ago crashed into me. "Don't come to my wedding. My biological dad doesn't want you there." At the time, I'd read it 10 times in disbelief, convinced she was venting, overwhelmed, emotional. I thought we'd talk through it. I thought it was a momentary lapse. But now, staring at the guards, the buzzing reception behind them, and the small, strained smile on Sophia's face, the truth finally settled. There was no mistake. There never had been. Someone behind the guards whispered, "Is that him?" Someone else glanced quickly away when I met their eyes. Heat rose in my throat. Anger, humiliation, confusion fighting for space in my chest. "Sophia," I said, voice tight, "did you know?" She hesitated. It was half a second, barely noticeable, but enough. Enough to say more than any words she could have spoken. "They didn't want drama," she said softly. "I thought maybe it wouldn't come to this." "Did you know?" I repeated. She dropped her gaze. "Lena said her father felt uncomfortable with you here. She thought it was best if I wasn't at the wedding." I finished for her. "My stepdaughter's wedding." The taller guard stepped forward again. "Sir, we do need to ask you to move back from the entrance. Please." I stared at him, then at the doors, then at the people drifting in behind me. People I'd seen at birthday parties, holidays, graduations. People I'd welcomed into my home. People who were now avoiding my eyes like I carried contagion. Sophia touched my arm lightly. "Evan, please don't make this a scene. This is Lena's day." I almost laughed. A raw, painful bark that stayed trapped behind my teeth. A scene? I wasn't the one creating a scene. I was the one being erased. "I'm not leaving until someone explains." But the guards moved in tandem, polite but firm, guiding me backward with gentle pressure that felt anything but gentle. A bridesmaid gasped softly when she realized what was happening. Another avoided looking at me entirely. A few guests exchanged confused glances, but no one stepped forward. No one asked if I was okay. No one said, "He belongs here." Not even my wife. By the time I reached the parking lot, my hands were shaking, not with fear, but fury I didn't know how to express. I turned to Sophia one last time, hoping I misunderstood, hoping she would rush after me and say this was wrong, that we'd fix it. Instead, she said, "Just go home, Evan. I'll send you videos later." That line, so casual, so dismissive, burned hotter than the guard's rejection. She walked back toward the entrance, adjusting her shawl as she blended into the flow of arriving guests. She didn't look back. Not once. As I sat in the car, trying to breathe, another memory surfaced uninvited. Lena in the passenger seat at 16, tears streaking mascara down her face. A breakup. Her first heartbreak. Do you think he ever cared about me? She had sobbed. I remember gripping the steering wheel, fighting the urge to say what I wanted to say. That boy doesn't get to decide your worth. She leaned on my shoulder until she'd cried herself out. She called me Dad that night. As I sat in the car, trying to breathe, another memory surfaced uninvited. Lena in the passenger seat at 16, tears streaking mascara down her face. A breakup. Her first heartbreak. Do you think he ever cared about me? She had sobbed. I remember gripping the steering wheel, fighting the urge to say what I wanted to say. That boy doesn't get to decide your worth. She leaned on my shoulder until she'd cried herself out. She called me Dad that night. Age 11. Elementary school talent showcase. Lena playing a shaky piano piece she'd practiced for weeks. Her biological father had promised he'd come. She had saved him a seat in the front row. It remained empty. She'd looked out at the audience, searching, then searching again, then finally landing on me. She smiled, small, sad, grateful. I clapped the loudest for her that day. Back at the Overlook, I exhaled hard. 12 years of moments like that. 12 years of late-night pickups, doctor appointments, school meetings, scraped knees, celebrations, disappointments. 12 years of being the one who stayed. And now? Blocked at the door. Unwelcome. Disposable. Last year. The living room strung with fairy lights. Lena hugging me when I surprised her with the down payment for her house. I don't deserve you, she'd said through tears. I believed her. I believed the emotion in her voice. Now I wasn't sure if she believed it herself. My phone buzzed. Sophia again. Everything is starting. Don't sit out there being dramatic. Dramatic. As if being barred from the wedding of the girl I raised was a misunderstanding I needed to stop overreacting to. I didn't reply. I didn't trust myself to. Shame, anger, confusion. Each emotion surged and retreated in waves. At moments I wanted to scream. At others, I wanted to believe it was a mistake we could talk through. And somewhere beneath everything, buried like a bruise, was the guilt of wondering if maybe I hadn't been enough after all. Was I too strict? Too soft? Too present? Not present enough. But the longer I stood at that overlook, the more a different, harder truth began to surface. It didn't matter. I could have been perfect, and it still wouldn't have mattered, because this decision wasn't about who raised Lena. It was about who had the title father written in ink. And Graham had finally decided to use it. I drove home after sunset, the sky fading to ash and blue. The house looked normal from the outside, lights warm in the windows, the porch planter Lena painted years ago still sitting crooked near the stairs. Normal, but everything inside me felt rearranged. I sat in the dark living room without turning on a lamp. I didn't want clarity. I didn't want brightness. I didn't want the room to reflect how empty I suddenly felt. I replayed the entire day over and over. The guards, the stairs, Sophia's hesitation, the doors closing behind her. And underneath all of it, the message, "Don't come to my wedding." A line so cold it didn't even bother dressing itself in politeness. My phone buzzed again. This time a video. Lena dancing with her husband. Sophia filming. Smiling. I deleted it without opening it. Something inside me clicked then, not loudly, not dramatically, but with the quiet certainty of a lock turning. For 12 years, I had played the role of the man who swallowed his hurt for the sake of harmony. The man who compromised. The man who stayed silent to keep the peace. But today, they hadn't asked for silence. They'd asked for absence. And they'd gotten it. But what they didn't realize was that I had finally learned something from it. If I could be erased so easily, maybe I was holding on to a family that had already let go of me long ago. I stood up from the couch. The room felt different. Or maybe I did. As I locked the front door and headed toward the hallway, a thought struck me so sharply it stopped me mid-step. If they had written me out of the wedding this cleanly, what else had they quietly erased me from? I didn't have the answer yet, but I was going to find out. And for the first time in years, I wasn't planning to stay quiet. The morning after the wedding, the humiliation didn't fade. It stuck to me like the smell of cheap perfume. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the guards stepping in front of me. I saw people staring. I saw Sophia adjusting her shawl like nothing was happening. So when sunlight filled the kitchen, it didn't feel like a new day. It felt like a reminder. I'd been erased. I didn't get far into my coffee before the front door opened. Sophia stepped in quietly, almost gingerly, like she was entering a room where something had already broken. She didn't say good morning. She didn't sit next to me. She hovered. The body language of someone who knew the blast radius but hoped to avoid it. Evan, she said finally, voice thin. I didn't expect you to be up. I didn't look at her. Why wouldn't I be? She flinched at the tone, or pretended to. Last night was difficult. Difficult. I let out a breath that tasted bitter. Is that the word we're using? Please don't start. You mean don't bring it up? I snapped. I get kicked out of Lena's wedding, and I'm not supposed to bring it up? She set her purse down a little too hard. I didn't. God, Evan, you're twisting things. How? I stood. I didn't plan to. It just happened. Explain how I'm twisting anything. She looked away, inhaling quickly. You know how emotional she gets. She was stressed. Graham. Don't say his name, I warned. She froze. For a few seconds neither of us spoke. The quiet hummed, charged. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. I knew they were considering it, but I didn't think they'd actually go through with it. It was a slip, her first honest slip in months. You knew? My voice cracked on the last word. And you didn't tell me? I thought it would blow over. I thought she would change her mind, she said quickly. I didn't think they'd tell the venue. They? I repeated. So this was a group effort? She pressed her lips together. Hard. Another slip. And she knew it. Lena at 15, sitting in the back seat on the way home from school, eyes red after her father didn't show up again. He always says he'll come next time, she whispered. I'd looked at her through the rearview mirror and said, you don't have to chase people who choose not to show up. Now those same words echoed back at me, but twisted. I had shown up, and I was the one turned away. Back in the kitchen, Sophia finally spoke again, but her tone had changed. Sharper. Defensiveness replacing guilt. You're acting like I orchestrated this, she snapped. You stood there while they humiliated me. What was I supposed to do? Make a scene in front of the entire family. Oh, so your priority was not embarrassing yourself. Got it. Stop it, she said, raising her voice for the first time. You know how Lena is with her father. He said he'd leave if you came, and she didn't want that drama. So she threw me out instead, I said flatly. Problem solved. You're oversimplifying it. No, I'm finally seeing it. She rolled her eyes. A tiny gesture, but cruel. Don't do this. Don't make yourself the victim here. That word hit harder than the guard's hands on my arms. I felt it clean through my ribs. Victim. She said it like I had chosen the role. I stepped closer, lowering my voice so she couldn't mistake the intention. I didn't choose anything, Sophia. I didn't choose to be left off the list. I didn't choose to be escorted out. I didn't choose for you to stand there pretending not to know me. Her eyes flickered. Guilt. Fear. Or something darker. Evan, please, she whispered. Let's just move past this. The wedding is done. It's over. It's not over for me, I said. And I'm done pretending. Sophia's shoulders slumped, like she'd been holding so many lies they'd finally gotten heavy. You're going to blow up everything, she said softly. No, I corrected, feeling a strange, steady calm forming inside me. Everything was already cracked. Yesterday just showed me where. She stared at me for a long time. Then she said something she didn't mean to say out loud. Graham warned her this would happen. My breath stopped. She realized her mistake the moment the words left her mouth. Her hand flew to her lips. That was it. That was the seed. The confirmation. This wasn't impulsive. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't even Lena's idea. It had been arranged, planned, prepared, long before I showed up at those vineyard doors. I stepped back from her, chest tight, but mind suddenly, terrifyingly clear. If they planned one thing without me, I said quietly, they planned others. Sophia swallowed, but didn't deny it. And that silence, that guilty, shaky silence, told me everything. Something bigger was coming, and I wasn't going to be blindsided again. The house felt different the morning after the wedding, not empty, just wrong. Like someone had shifted the furniture an inch while I slept. I hadn't touched my coffee. I just stared at it, replaying the guard's hands on my arms and the way everyone avoided my eyes. When Sophia walked into the kitchen, she hesitated in the doorway. A real hesitation, the kind you don't perform. She looked exhausted, still in yesterday's makeup, eyes slightly swollen. Not cold, shaken. Evan, she started, but her voice cracked on my name. That was new. You didn't sleep, I said. She blinked, startled I could tell. I know. We stood in the same kitchen where we'd shared 1,000 calm mornings. Today the air felt like metal. She finally stepped in, rubbing her forehead. I should have told you sooner. That sentence, quiet, bare, hit harder than anything. I turned to face her. Told me what? Her breath hitched. That things were getting complicated. There it was. Not a clean confession, but a beginning. Complicated how? I asked, keeping my tone steady. She looked down at her hands. Lena wasn't sure how to balance everything. Graham has been more involved. The way she said his name wasn't neutral. It carried weight. Something practiced, maybe repeated. Not spontaneous. More involved, I echoed. Or more controlling? Sophia looked up sharply, that flash of defensive fear I'd been waiting for. Not guilt. Not loyalty. Fear. It wasn't like that, she said. Too fast. Too practiced. I stepped forward softly. Sophia, look at me. She did, reluctantly. Did he talk to you? I asked. Before the wedding? Her throat tightened. He's her father, Evan. He just wanted things to be smooth. Smooth. I repeated. Is that his word or yours? She opened her mouth. Closed it. A tiny tremor crossed her jaw, the kind that slips out when someone is trying to hold a lie still. I didn't push. Not yet. Because something else caught my attention. Her phone. It was on the counter behind her. Unlocked. An open text thread still half visible. Sophia never, ever left her phone unlocked. My eyes flicked to the screen before she noticed and slid it into her pocket. Too fast. That wasn't guilt. That was panic. She tried to regain control. You don't need to go looking for villains. I'm not, I said quietly. But someone went looking for me. She froze. And in that freeze, the air shifted. Not 3 months ago, but 6 weeks. Sophia standing in the hallway, whispering into her phone. I'd walked in on the tail end of it. No, don't worry. He'll agree if I explain it the right way. She hurriedly hung up, said it was just about rehearsal logistics. At the time, I believed her. Now I realized she never said who was on the other end. Back in the present, Sophia's face tightened. You're connecting dots that aren't there. Then show me which dots are there, I said. She exhaled sharply, frustration mixed with something softer. Fear of losing Lena? Fear of losing me? I couldn't tell. But she wasn't calm anymore. She was unraveling in small, human ways. Lena didn't want conflict, she whispered. She was scared Graham would leave if things got heated. And she thought I'd be the cause? I asked. Sophia didn't answer. That silence was worse than any lie. Because silence has intention. I walked past her to grab my jacket, not angrily, just done pretending. What are you doing? She asked, voice rising. Checking something. Her eyes followed me, nervous, calculating. Checking what? I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I paused at the small table by the entryway, the one where bills and mail piled up. There it was. A piece of mail with my name on it. A notice from Ridgeview Title Services. Opened. Not by me. Sophia's breath caught before I even picked it up. And that was the bridge. The missing piece. The reason suspicion turned into certainty. I turned the envelope in my hand and said, almost gently, You went through my title documents? Her lips parted, color draining from her face. Evan, it's not what you think. But you don't touch someone's title paperwork by accident. Or out of curiosity. Or because it was in the pile. You check title paperwork when someone tells you to. Someone who cares about ownership, control, assets. Someone like Graham. I don't think the wedding band was the whole plan, I said softly. Sophia's breath trembled. I continued. I think it was the first step. She closed her eyes, just for a moment. And that was the confirmation she didn't mean to give. Not a word. Not a gesture. Just a moment. But moments tell the truth people won't say. As I set the open title notice back on the table, I felt the shift. Deep, anchoring, and final. Whatever Graham had been setting up, whatever Lena had agreed to, whatever Sophia had kept hidden, it was connected to something with my name on it. And now I knew where to start looking. I didn't find the envelope because it was conveniently placed. I found it because Sophia slipped. After our fight, she'd left the stack of mail scattered across the entry table, something she never did. Normally she sorted it instantly, color-coded, filed, tucked things away so the house didn't feel chaotic. But that morning, she rushed down the hall too fast, knocking half the pile sideways. The envelope slid loose from underneath. Not placed. Not staged. Dislodged by panic. That alone made it believable. I picked it up slowly. It was already opened, but not neatly. The flap was torn, jagged, the kind of rip someone makes when they're trying to read fast and hide faster. Sophia hovered behind me, silent, arms tied across her chest like she was trying to hold herself together. I turned the envelope over in my hand. Why didn't you put this away? Her voice faltered. I meant to. Everything yesterday. Her words collapsed under their own weight. She was scared, not calculating. And fear makes people sloppy. I took it into the office. Sophia stayed in the doorway but didn't enter. Like crossing the threshold would make her more involved than she wanted to be. The notice was short. This is to confirm a recent request to view and update the beneficiary structure for the property held under your name. If this request was not made by you, please verify authorization. Beneficiary structure. Not transfer. Not sale. Not loan. It meant who would legally inherit control of the property if something happened to me. That's not routine. That's estate-level paperwork. And someone had tried to change it 12 days before the wedding. I reread it 3 times before setting it down. Behind me, Sophia whispered, I thought it was about refinancing. Graham said sometimes they ask for updates before a big family event. There. The first breadcrumb. She didn't even notice she'd said Graham said. Again. Who told you that? I asked. He mentioned it. She wouldn't look at me. Shame, not guilt. That distinction mattered. She wasn't masterminding this. She was following someone she trusted more than she should. Not a big one, just a detail. 2 months ago, at a cookout, Graham and I both reached for the same serving bowl. Our hands brushed, and he said, too casually, you own a few properties, right? Good investment. Families can get messy if assets aren't structured early. Families. Assets. Structured early. I'd brushed it off as small talk. Now it echoed differently. I didn't jump to conspiracy. I didn't accuse. I didn't even raise my voice. I simply picked up my phone and dialed the number at the bottom of the letter. Sophia's breath caught. Evan, just let me explain before you. I held up a hand. The call connected after a moment. Ridgeview title, this is Carla. How can I help you? Hi, I said cautiously. I received a notice about a beneficiary update for my property. Before we discuss details, what verification do you need from me? A brief pause, then a professional shift. Just your name, address, and the last 4 digits of your social. No other information will be shared without full verification. Good. Realistic. Grounded. I gave the details. She confirmed. When she spoke again, her tone softened slightly. Okay, Mr. Hart. So, yes, there was an attempt to initiate a beneficiary review. It didn't go through because the authorization signature did not match yours. We flagged it and held the request. Can you tell me who submitted it? I can only share what the system logged, she said carefully. The request originated from a shared household device using your wife's auto-filled profile. My pulse didn't spike. I'd been expecting it. But Sophia's knees buckled slightly, and she gripped the doorframe. Carla continued. It looks like a common mistake. People click forms without realizing their device's auto-fill credentials. Sophia seized the lifeline. Yes, that's what happened. But the woman wasn't finished. However, she added, the form details included an additional note referencing a prior advisement conversation with a third party. That's why we held it. What third party? I asked. I can't share the name, she said apologetically. But it was a male. And the note said he advised the update for clarity before the upcoming event. Upcoming event. The wedding. Graham. The pieces didn't explode into place. They settled. Quiet. Icy. Too neat to be random. Too coordinated to be accidental. I thanked Carla and hung up. Sophia stood there shaking, but not with guilt. With fear. Evan, I didn't mean for anything to happen. He said it was just to help Lena. He said. I cut her off gently. Sophia. Stop. She froze. It doesn't matter what he said. For the first time since the wedding, my voice was steady. Controlled. Cold. I held the envelope and looked at her, really looked. You didn't ruin anything, I said quietly. But you showed me something. Her breath caught. What? That I've been trusting the wrong people with the right information. And this time, the fear in her eyes wasn't about what she'd done. It was about what I was about to do next. I didn't storm out of the house. I didn't slam anything. I didn't even raise my voice. It was worse than that. I stood in the center of the office, the beneficiary notice on the desk between us, and I finally looked at my wife like someone I didn't fully recognize. Sophia wasn't trembling this time. She wasn't whispering or backing into a wall. She was still. Too still. Like someone bracing for consequences she couldn't outrun. I need you to tell me the truth, I said. She swallowed, keeping her hands clasped tightly in front of her. Her dominant emotion wasn't guilt or panic now. It was shame. Not shame for what she did. Shame for what she believed. Graham, she began, then stopped, choosing her words carefully. He made it sound like you and Lena were drifting. Like you'd been overwhelmed. He said maybe you needed support. That word again. Support. A word manipulators weaponize because it sounds generous. Why would he think that? I asked. Her eyes glistened. Because I told him. There it was. Not a smoking gun. Just a slow puncture. I exhaled slowly. Why, Sophia? I didn't think it would go anywhere, she whispered. He asked how you were doing. I said you'd been stressed and quiet lately. I didn't think he'd use it. That was the missing piece. Not conspiracy, but carelessness. She hadn't chosen sides out of malice. She'd chosen out of avoidance. Graham offered her an easy story. I offered hard conversations. She picked the one she could live inside. I went to grab my jacket, not because I planned to leave, but because I needed something to do with my hands. As I lifted it from the chair, a folded paper slid from the inside pocket, one I'd put there myself 2 weeks ago. Not a clue place to be found. A document I'd tucked away when Lena asked me to review her refinance options whenever you have time. I'd forgotten about it. Sophia hadn't. She glanced at it the second it hit the floor, not with panic, but recognition. I unfolded the paper. It wasn't dramatic. No circled lines. No incriminating notes. Just a standard mortgage summary. But handwritten in the margin, in Lena's looping writing, was a question. Does refinancing change who's listed as beneficiary? I stared at it. Not a trap. Just a question she'd meant to ask me in person. But someone else had answered her first. Did Lena talk to you about this? I asked. Sophia nodded slowly. She asked if you'd had a chance to look at it. I said you'd been tired lately, and maybe Graham could help her understand the basics. The floor seemed to tilt a degree. You sent her to Graham for advice? I asked quietly. Sophia lifted her chin, trying to justify it. He said he'd done estate planning during his second marriage. He sounded confident. And you'd been distant. I wasn't distant. I was tired. From work. From trying. From being the guy who held everything together silently. And she had mistaken that silence for absence. I set the paper down carefully. I'm not angry you tried to help her, I said. I'm angry you didn't tell me what he was saying. What he was shaping. Her eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. I didn't want to start a fight. You started something worse, I said. She blinked hard. What? You started keeping me out of my own life. Her face crumpled, quietly, inwardly, but she didn't break. Not this time. Because she knew the truth too. I grabbed my keys, but didn't move toward the door. I hovered. Hesitated. Because confronting Lena wasn't about demanding answers. It was about walking into a conversation that might end a relationship I'd spent 12 years building. I need to talk to her, I said finally. Evan, Sophia stepped forward. Please, not today. She's still overwhelmed. Everything at the wedding. I'm not going there to fight, I said. I'm going to understand what she believes. Sophia's voice broke. I'm afraid of what you'll hear. That was the first honest thing she had said all morning. Before I left, I checked my phone. A missed call from Rob. A voicemail. Then a text preview. Rob, call me when you can. There's something off about Graham. Sent 40 minutes earlier. No melodramatic reveal. No sudden twist. Just a breadcrumb. A crack from someone inside Lena's world. I didn't open it. Not yet. But it sat in my pocket like a pulse. I'm going, I told Sophia, hand on the doorknob. But I won't shout. I won't accuse. I'm not giving anyone a reason to say I proved them right. Her voice trembled. And what if she already has? I paused. Because she wasn't asking out of fear for Lena. She was asking out of fear for us. I opened the door. If Graham's been shaping what she thinks of me, I said softly, then it's time I hear the story he's been telling. The door shut behind me. And for the first time since the wedding, I felt the ground beneath me harden, not with anger. With purpose. Rob didn't answer the door straight away. I heard footsteps pacing, stopping, pacing again. A muffled voice, Lena's, then silence. When the door finally opened, Rob filled the doorway, one hand braced on the frame like he wasn't sure he should let me in. Hey, he said, not quietly, not warmly, just unsettled. I stepped inside. He didn't offer coffee or small talk. He just motioned toward the couch, then hovered near the far wall as though he was trying to keep distance between himself and the problem, which I realized was me, or what Graham said I was. Rob ran a hand through his hair. I'm glad you came. I wasn't sure if. Actually, I don't know what I expected. His voice shook on the last part. Good. A real person, not an exposition machine. I'm not here to fight, I said. I know, he muttered. That's the weird part. He sat finally, but on the edge of the armchair, like he was ready to stand again at any second. He opened his mouth twice before anything came out. I don't know how to say this without making it worse, he admitted. Just say what you saw. That's the thing, he said, rubbing his palms against his jeans. I didn't see everything. I only noticed pieces. And I don't know if the pieces fit. Finally, something real. What pieces? I asked. He hesitated. You need to know I'm trying to stay neutral here. She's been under a lot of pressure. And Graham, he's intense. And persuasive. But I'm not saying she blames you. She doesn't. He stopped. Exhaled. Started again. She's caught between the two of you. And she shuts down when things get tense. You know how she is. I nodded. Yes. But Graham, he doesn't shut down. He fills silence. That's what he does. He talks into every gap. My jaw tightened. Rob looked down at his hands. Sometimes he said things about you. Sometimes he didn't say your name at all, but the meaning was there. He'd say stuff like, some people take on too much and slip without realizing. Or, you can't let someone's stress pull the whole family down. General things. But Lena, she hears things like that more deeply than he realizes. More deeply than he realizes. Or exactly as deeply as he intended. I felt something tighten behind my ribs. Not anger. Something worse. That quiet, trembling hurt you try not to show in front of younger men who married into your family. I swallowed. Did she repeat any of that to you? Not exactly, he said. More like, she'd ask if you were okay. Or she'd say you seemed tired. Or that she didn't want to burden you with more decisions. That word again. Burden. Graham's fingerprints weren't loud. They were quiet, patient, strategic. Rob leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Look, I don't want to throw your daughter under the bus. She loves you. She does. But she's been scared to tell you things because she thought it would make you angry. My throat tightened again. Angry at what? I asked. Rob hesitated, visibly this time. That's the part one don't think she fully believes, he said slowly. But Graham, he tells her that you get overwhelmed easier than you admit. That you don't cope well with big changes. That you react. I closed my eyes for a long moment. I wasn't explosive. I wasn't volatile. But I was quiet. I handled things alone. And that silence left room for someone else to define me. Rob scratched the back of his neck. 2 weeks ago, they were talking about the wedding guest list in here. I came in to grab something and heard Graham say, sometimes you have to protect people from themselves. Especially the ones who've carried too much for too long. My chest hollowed. And Lena? I asked. She didn't argue, Rob said softly. She just nodded. Like she didn't know how to disagree with him. There it was. Not betrayal. Not conspiracy. Influence. Can I talk to her? I asked. Rob hesitated, then nodded. I walked down the hall. The bedroom door wasn't cracked open conveniently this time. It was shut. I knocked softly. Lena, I said. My voice broke, just once. It's me. Silence. Then, I'm not ready, she said from the other side. Muffled, strained, real. No perfect phrasing. No full confession. Just fear. Please, I said. I just want to talk. I can't, she whispered. Not yet. Something inside me folded. Not rage. Not disappointment. A quiet, terrible grief. Rob appeared behind me, voice low. Evan, there's more. Not from her. From Graham. He swallowed. He went to see someone. About you. My pulse kicked. Who? I don't know, Rob said. But whatever it was, Lena said it made everything simpler. Simpler. A word that only makes sense when you're removing someone from the equation. I backed away from the door slowly. Okay, I said. Calmly. Too calmly. But Rob heard the change in my voice anyway. The shift. The quiet, dangerous resolve. And he whispered, almost to himself. Evan, what did he do? I didn't answer. Because for the first time, I understood exactly what I needed to do next. I didn't drive away from Lena's house right away. I sat in the cul-de-sac with the engine off, hands still on the steering wheel, forehead resting against the leather. The street was so quiet it sounded like someone had turned the world down to half volume. Rob's words weren't clean in my head anymore. Not a confession. Not a revelation. Just fragments. Uneven pieces. Nothing I could fully trust. He fills silence. She hears things deeply. He said some people slip. Not evidence. Shadows. I wasn't sure what bothered me more, Graham's influence or the slow realization that I had left enough emotional gaps for someone else to crawl into. I sat there until the cold seeped into my fingertips. Then I dialed the number for the municipal property office, not because I was sure it would help, but because I needed something factual to hold on to. The line rang 5 times before someone answered. Property records, this is Angela, a tired voice said. Hi. I began, already realizing how unprepared I was. I'm trying to get information on recent public inquiries tied to my address. Pause. You're the owner? Yes. Another pause. Okay. Usually these requests take 24 hours to process. We can't give details over the phone without a form on file. Of course. Real life wasn't easy. I let out a slow breath. Is there any way to at least confirm if an inquiry exists? A sigh. Papers rustling. I can check that much. I waited. Seconds stretched. Yeah, she said finally. Someone did look up the property. About a month ago. Can you tell me who? I can't give names. Just the category of the request. And the category was more rustling, quiet tapping. Beneficiary structure, she said. Review level request. My grip tightened on the phone. Anything else? Just a note in the system, she said. The person who submitted it asked, how would this affect someone who isn't on the title? My stomach dropped. I didn't know who had asked the question, but I knew exactly what it meant. Someone was trying to understand how decisions made about my property would affect someone else. But I didn't push further. I didn't ask the name. I didn't ask for a form. Because I knew that if I heard the wrong name right now, something inside me might break too loudly. I sat in the car after the call, the cold seeping through the vents. My heartbeat thudded unevenly. Part of me wanted to drive straight home. Another part wanted to confront Graham immediately. But I didn't trust myself, not yet. Not with the anger pulsing right beneath the skin. Not with the grief still fresh. I forced my breathing to slow. I needed clarity, not combustion. A vibration buzzed against my thigh. A text. Rob, hey. I wasn't sure if I should say this earlier. I didn't open it right away. I stared at the notification rectangle, hovering. Rob wasn't reliable enough to feel like a lifeline, and too tangled in Lena's world to be an enemy. A gray space. A man trying to keep peace while the ground shifted under him. The message preview blinked again. Rob. Just be careful with Graham. Not information. Not a clue. Just fear. I finally opened the rest. Rob. He had a meeting last week with someone. He told Lena it was logistics. But he looked shaken afterward. She thought it was about the wedding. I don't think it was. My pulse steadied. Not calmer, but sharper. What kind of meeting? What logistics? Why shaken? The text didn't say. And honestly, that made it worse. I leaned back against the seat, letting the cold air sting my lungs. Graham wasn't the cartoon villain I'd been imagining. He wasn't sloppy or loud. He didn't issue threats. He didn't twist arms. His power came from something more dangerous. He made people feel like choosing him was the reasonable thing. He wrapped manipulation in care, smothered autonomy with guidance, made confidence look like stability. He filled silences that weren't his to fill, and he made the people I loved believe he saw something inside me I couldn't, that I was slipping, that I was fragile, that I needed managing. He gave them a version of me that made his presence feel necessary. That was the real betrayal, not the documents, not the wedding, the version of me he'd painted, a man fragile enough to be protected from the truth. I pressed my palms against the steering wheel and felt a tremor run through my arms. Just once. A flicker of everything. Hurt, anger, loss, failure, fear, love, confusion, resolve. It lasted a second. Then it faded. Not gone, just controlled. The way pain settles into a place too deep for reaction. I didn't drive home, but I didn't drive to Graham either. Instead, my hands moved almost on their own, guiding the car toward a third place, one I hadn't planned to go. The place where I could finally see if what Rob hinted at was true. If Graham really had been preparing something. If this was as big as I feared. The attorney district. Row after row of small brick offices with frosted windows and brass plaques. I didn't know which office was his, but I knew I'd recognize something when I saw it. Something that shouldn't be there. Something connected to me. Something connected to the plan no one would say out loud yet. I parked and stepped out into the freezing air. And as I scanned the names on the plaques, my breath caught. Because one of them wasn't a stranger. It was a name I hadn't seen in years. A name tied to a part of my past I'd shut away so long I thought it couldn't matter anymore. But Graham had found him, and suddenly everything made sense. The law offices sat in a quiet brick row, the kind of place people only visit when something is ending or something is being divided. The hallway smelled faintly of heater dust and old carpet glue. Every footstep echoed too loudly. I didn't expect to see Graham here. I didn't expect to see anyone. I only came because something in my chest felt pulled toward truth the way metal finds a magnet. I scanned the nameplates as I walked. Dawson Family Mediation, Harper and Vale Legal Review, Vale Estate Services. That last one was the attorney who'd handled my mother's estate years ago, Arthur Vale. The connection hit me like a soft impact, muted but solid. Why here? Why him? Why now? I stepped inside his office. The receptionist looked up from a stack of paperwork. She pushed her glasses up her nose, already reading my hesitation. Can I help you? I need to speak with Arthur, I said quietly. She hesitated. He's in a meeting. A subtle shift in her expression, not concern, but discomfort. With who? I asked. She glanced toward the frosted glass door behind her. I'm not sure. And then the door opened. Arthur stepped out, followed by a familiar silhouette. Graham. He froze for half a second, subtle, almost undetectable, then masked it with a cordial smile. Evan, he said, what are you doing here? His tone was light. Too light. Arthur looked between us. Should I give you two a minute? Graham didn't answer. He just offered a small, dismissive gesture, and Arthur slipped away politely. The receptionist pretended not to listen. I stood there, pulse steady but heavy. What are you doing with Vale? I asked. Graham adjusted his coat sleeve as though lint bothered him. Getting clarity on a few things. With everything going on, it seemed wise. Clarity on what? Future planning, he said. He's an estate specialist, isn't he? Why wouldn't I talk to someone who knows the system? It wasn't an answer, and he knew it. I thought you didn't like Vale, I said. Graham's lips curved just slightly. People change their minds. No defensiveness. No guilt. Just smooth misdirection. Manipulators survive on plausible vagueness. He tucked a folded document into his inside jacket pocket, the way someone hides something without appearing to hide it. My eyes flicked to it. He noticed. Don't, he said softly. Don't start imagining things that aren't there. Not a threat. Not a correction. A whisper meant to place doubt where certainty stood. I exhaled, long and shaky. Lena's terrified of disappointing you. His expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted, a tightening around the shoulders. She's terrified of letting anyone down, he said. Always has been. She told you things before she told me. He didn't deny it. Sometimes, he said, people tell the person they think won't push back. It landed like a gut punch. Not an accusation. Not a triumph. A quiet truth delivered by someone who didn't care how deeply it cut. My jaw tightened. Just once. He saw that too. I've been a ghost for half her life, he said calmly. If she wants structure or perspective or to understand her options, she deserves that. Options for what? I asked. He shrugged like it was nothing. For adulthood, marriage, property, stability. She's trying to understand how things shift when relationships change. Whose relationships? I pressed. He held my gaze. Unblinking, unreadable. Everyone's. There it was. Not a confession. Just enough implication to unsettle the entire foundation. A half-answer designed to multiply questions, not answer them. You think I'm unstable, I said quietly. I think you're tired, he replied. And carrying a lot you never let anyone see. He said it with a softness that would sound like compassion to someone who didn't know the undertones. To me, it felt like someone placing a hand on a bruise and pressing slowly. You told her I slip, I said. I told her people under stress sometimes miss things, he said. Which is true. You're here, aren't you? Chasing shadows. He glanced at the frosted door. And making assumptions based on where you find me. It was a perfect line, vague, polished, impossible to counter without sounding paranoid. This was his strength. Not lies. Interpretations. I turned away from him, suddenly needing air more than answers. My chest felt tight, my breathing shallow. The receptionist pretended to type as I left, eyes flicking nervously between us. Outside, the cold hit me. Hard. I took a step toward my car and froze. A silver sedan was parked 2 spaces away. Engine off. Windows fogged. A silhouette inside, shoulders curled inward. Lena. staring down at her hands. Not moving, not crying loudly, just that quiet, shaking stillness that comes when someone has been afraid too long. Graham didn't put her here. She followed me on her own. That realization cut deeper than anything he'd said. I stood there for several seconds, feeling the weight of 12 years slam into my ribs. She looked up through the windshield. Her eyes widened. Fear, guilt, hope, all tangled. She lifted one hand slowly, unsure if she should wave or hide. I didn't move, because I wasn't ready for what came next. Behind me, the office door opened softly. Graham's reflection appeared in the glass beside me, distorted by the winter light. I didn't tell her to come, he murmured. A simple, devastating sentence. Then he added, almost gently, sometimes people follow the person they're most afraid of losing. Not manipulative, not proud, just true enough to paralyze me. I walked toward Lena's car, not because I knew what I was going to say, but because she was already reaching for the door handle. Lena opened the car door before I reached it. Her breath fogged in the cold, her fingers trembling as she stepped out. She didn't look angry or defensive. She looked young, older, tired, all at once. Dad, her voice wavered. I thought you'd be furious. I'm not angry, I said, but I am hurt, and I need to understand how we got here. She nodded, wrapping her arms around herself like she was holding something in. I didn't mean to shut you out, she whispered. I didn't want to make anything worse. My chest tightened. What made you think you could make things worse? She stared at the pavement. It wasn't one comment, she said. It was little nudges. Graham would say things like, your dad has a lot on his shoulders, or let's not add pressure right now. It didn't sound like criticism. It sounded like he was trying to protect you. And that was the danger. The kind of manipulation that wears kindness like a coat. And you believed him, I said quietly. She hesitated. Sometimes. Not always. But when Mom got anxious, and Graham always had a calm answer ready, it felt easier to follow the voice that sounded steady. Easier, I repeated. The most dangerous word in a family. Lena lifted her eyes to mine, tears trembling at the edges. I thought I was choosing peace, she whispered. I didn't realize the path I took was leading away from you. A fracture healed just a little. I stepped closer, not grabbing her, just making room. And she stepped into it. Her forehead rested against my chest the way she used to when she ran out of words. I didn't pick him over you, she said. I picked the quietest path, and I didn't see what it cost. It cost us both, I murmured. But we start from here. When we got home, Sophia was in the kitchen, pacing small circles like she didn't know where to put her hands or her guilt. She froze when Lena stepped in behind me. Sophia, Lena said quietly, not Mom. Not anger, just distance. Sophia's voice came out thin. I thought I was protecting you. From what? Lena asked softly. Sophia opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. I didn't want you caught between us, she whispered, or feeling responsible for everyone's emotions. Graham made it sound like giving your father space would keep things calm. Lena didn't lash out, but she also didn't step forward. You trusted him more than you trusted Dad, she said, and it wasn't accusation, it was truth. Sophia's breath hitched. No, I trusted the version of calm he offered. And I was wrong. I was a coward. Lena's throat worked, but she didn't crumble. She simply said, I need time. The smallest sentence. The strongest boundary. Sophia nodded, eyes glossy. Take all the time you need. She didn't beg. She didn't try to hug her. She didn't rewrite the past. It was the most honest thing she'd done. He came later that evening. A soft knock. Then silence. When I opened the door, he stood with his hands in his coat pockets, shoulders slightly rounded, not defeated, not guilty, just off balance. I wanted to check on her, he said. She's with us, I replied. He nodded slowly. I didn't mean for things to unravel like this. Manipulators always believe that, because they focus on outcomes, not impacts. I think you underestimate the way your actions ripple, I said. He exhaled, long and quiet. Maybe I just didn't want to feel like an outsider anymore. There it was. The true motive. Not power. Not control. Fear. I'll give her space, he said. And you. I won't interfere. For the first time, I believed he understood he wasn't the center of this story anymore. He stepped down from the porch, then paused. If she reaches out, he said, I'll tread lightly. Not I'll stay away. Not I was wrong. But it was enough. He walked off into the cold, not banished. Just no longer steering the narrative. Later, Lena sat at the kitchen table, tracing the wood grain with her thumb. I don't know how to fix everything overnight, she said. With you. With Mom. Even with him. You're not supposed to, I said. Fixing isn't the goal. Understanding is. She looked up, eyes wet but steady. I want you in my life, she whispered. Just in a way that feels real again. That's all I've ever wanted, I said. A long silence passed. Not heavy, not tense. Just space. Can we start small? She asked. Small is the right place, I said. She reached out and let her fingertips rest on the back of my hand. Not a full gesture. Not a full repair. A beginning. A real one. That night, after the house had gone still, I stepped outside. The street lamp hummed softly. The cold air felt cleaner somehow, like something inside all of us had cracked open and could finally breathe. I wasn't fully healed. We weren't fixed. The story didn't tie into a bow, but it belonged to us again, not rewritten, not narrated by someone else. And in that quiet winter air, I knew the truth I had been avoiding for years. Silence isn't strength. When it lets someone else decide who you are. I inhaled, feeling that truth settle deep. Then I went back inside, ready to rebuild, slowly, intentionally, honestly, the way real families survive.